Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Trading Together. I'm Mel Gacee. Today is Tuesday, January the 13th, and welcome to our post CPI market. So we had CPI data this morning. CPI stands for the Consumer Price Index. This is one of the tools that the Fed uses to determine what is the inflation rate in our country. And based on inflation, so the Fed has basically a dual mandate to maintain good employment and to maintain interest and prices, right? So they look at the CPI and the PPI for information as to what is going on with inflation. So CPI is the Consumer Price Index. That is the price that consumers pay. PPI is Producer Price Index. That's the price that producers pay. And the Fed looks at both of those to get a handle or an idea of what inflation is. So the CPI is what came out today. Tomorrow we'll get PPI. These are big market moving data factors. So as a trader, you have to be aware of the different things that can move the market. And these types of data are one of those things that can definitely move the market. So Gavilan is here. Good morning. Good to see you. And Anna is here. Good morning. Really good to see both of you. Thank you for joining. So I'm just starting to talk about CPI and what happened with the markets this morning. So CPI happened pre-market at 8:30 Eastern, just about an hour before the market opens. And it came out to be the same as last month. So month over month, year over year, the Consumer Price Index came out to the same level as it was a month ago. And that is deemed positive, was deemed positive by the market. We did have a positive response pre-market. It jumped up, and we saw that the market participants, future traders, did go ahead and buy that that report. And then at the open, we got pretty much an immediate drop. So it was a little bit of a trick, right? So people came into the morning thinking, oh, okay, we're positive because we had that jump pre-market. And then we came in, we sort of went up and down, and then whoosh, just a straight move down, starting at about 9:43 Eastern. So within about 15 minutes of the market open, we started to get this push down, and we did get a pretty significant push down. Then since about 10:25 Eastern, so for about an hour, we went down 45 minutes. And for the last, let's see, for 35, 40 minutes, we've been doing a slow climb up, but it hasn't been super impressive, right? We're still negative. We're still under the VWAP. So I'm watching to see, are we making a slow rise to reverse this move down, or are we just kind of getting a little bump up for the next leg down? So that's what I'm watching to see right now. I've traded this to the downside a couple of times, and that's been great. I've done well with that. I have not traded to the upside yet today. We are under the VWAP. I was considering it over here, but I'm going to wait and be patient for a cross of the VWAP. If we should cross the VWAP to the upside, then I may consider moving in to a call or a bullish position. Okay. So right now, that is what I'm looking at. Our VIX is slightly elevated today, up 2.8%. And we have been sitting in some negative gamma. Now that is kind of lightening up. We're getting a little bit more positive as the day goes on, but still sitting in negative gamma. So that's something to be aware of. What that tells us is at any moment, when we're in negative gamma, at any moment, we can turn and pull down pretty quickly. So usually market conditions in negative gamma, we can get waterfalls to the downside, kind of like we had this one right here. And then when we're in positive gamma, we usually get these slow, steady climbs with kind of a target overhead, a magnet overhead, and a lot of times we just kind of pin there. All right, so Anna, I see on my trading view a huge order block between 694 and 697. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that, Anna. I wonder what you're seeing there. Sell the puts. Great. All right, Gavilan got in at the 692 put and losing, made a bad move. I'm sorry to hear that. Depends on how bad you're losing, if you need to stop out or not. I think it's possible to come back down today. But if you're beyond your stop loss, unfortunately, I would say you gotta keep your stops, right? I do think it's possible to come back down today. And Anna, I would love to know what your order block was between 694 and 697. What kind of order was it? Puts or calls? And where did you see it between 694 and 697? Because that's kind of where we're sitting right now, really. We're just under 694. So Gavilan down almost 50. Okay. All right. So on the 5-minute sellers block. Okay. So they're selling, Anna. Is that what you saw? Was it a big sell order there? Because I don't see an order like that, but we have different tools. So I wouldn't expect that we would all see the same thing. Bitcoin also making a really nice move to the upside. We're sitting at almost 94 on Bitcoin, 94,000, which is great. That's exactly what we've been waiting for, is to get back up and retest 95. And what we need this time is a punch through it, because we've been kind of sitting in this zone on Bitcoin between 90 and 95. We need to punch through it to the upside on Bitcoin. All right. So Anna has an indicator and all I see is a red block. Okay, that's great information though, Anna, because it tells me that you're seeing a sell order. So that's cool. Maybe that's good for you, Gavilan. Maybe we'll get this move down here coming in a minute. And when did you see it? When did it appear, Anna? Just curious. Because if it appeared prior to this move down, we may have already traded it. I wish I could share a screenshot. Yeah, I don't. Can you not? Does it not let you? Good morning, Suresh. Good to see you. All right, so we're kind of holding sideways right now. Whenever we break out of this range, we'll either break to the upside or the downside. So we got to wait and see. There's a tiny little range here. Looks like it wants to break to the upside, but we'll see. Gavilan, with a possible move down, should I cost average? It's a tough call, Gavilan. It's a tough call. Here's the thing with averaging. I do average sometimes, and a lot of times it works out. But the times when it doesn't, that's when it winds up costing you a lot of money, because when you average, of course, you're making your position size larger. So if it continued to climb today and you averaged, now you're in for more, and it could turn into a losing trade and a bigger losing trade. So what you would want to see before you made that decision is you'd want to see the charts really turning. And right now they're not turning yet. So could they? Yes, they could, but right now they're not. We're kind of in this little bullish run at the moment. All right, Audrey is here. Hi, Audrey. Asking how was the rest of your trading yesterday. It was a good day, Audrey. I know we took a win and a loss, and the loss was just a little bit bigger. But I closed my day green. It wasn't huge. I made yesterday. I made like 2% of my account, so it wasn't a huge day. But I made my goal, and so that was totally fine with me. Most of the time, when I take a losing trade, most of the time I can trade back out of it and keep myself positive for the day. Some days, of course, we end them red, and there's just nothing to be done about that. If we're going to close it red, we're just going to close it red, and that's the way it is, as long as that's the exception and not the rule, right? But thank you for asking, Audrey. They're very kind of you. All right, so looks like it might be trying to break this range to the upside. We have not busted through the VWAP yet, but it's right overhead. So VWAP is right here. If we break through the VWAP and we continue to climb, I'm going to consider calls here. All right, nice climb. No break of the VWAP yet. Now, if we reject off the VWAP and we turn and go down and we get the MACD going to the downside and the moving averages start to come down, I would trade puts. So right now I'm waiting for a cross of the VWAP or a rejection of it. All right, so the other thing that I do every day is I check the volumes and I check the gamma. So right now, I use a third-party app. I use Cheddarflow for gamma. Right now, we are sitting in negative gamma, about 3 billion, 3.5 billion in negative gamma. That's been flipping around a lot this morning. But even with this climb, we're still in negative gamma. So the environment when we're in negative gamma is that we can get waterfall moves to the downside. So that is something I'm aware of, even though we've been doing this climb here. So I'm watching. The other thing I look at is the trading volume per strike. So I come out here, I look at today's options for today's expiration, and I look at where the volume is sitting. Now, this is NVIDIA. I need to get to SPY. All right. So for today's options, we have the heaviest option flow sitting at the 693 puts, right? And Joy has a sell block somewhere in between 694 and 697, which is interesting. On the call side, we do have heavy volume. So a couple 100,000 on each of these strikes. So 694, 695, 696, 697, and 698 all have over 200,000 of volume on the call side. So the put side is looking a little bit lighter based on the cumulative volume, but the single largest trade or strike is the put at 693. So with negative gamma and with those volumes, I'm just being patient and waiting to see what happens here with the VWAP. The other thing I'm always looking at is what I call the leaderboard. That's my watch list. And that tells me who are the leaders. Who are the leaders this morning? Well, we've got silver up there. Bitcoin is doing beautifully up, like I just said a minute ago, up almost to 94,000. So MSTR is one stock that I watch frequently. That is also up. But as far as the Mag 7, the leaders are going to be Google sitting at 1.5% positive, Broadcom 1.2, Tesla 0.3, NVIDIA 0.3. And then to the negative Mag 7 stocks, we've got Apple just at its flat line. And let's see, Amazon down about 0.8, Microsoft down 1.7, Meta down 2.6. So it's kind of a mixed bag here again on the tech stocks. So I also look at the MAGs, which is the ETF that holds all of the Magnificent Seven stocks in it. And where is my MAGs? My watch list sometimes eats my tickers and I don't know why. All right, MAG's down about 0.4%. Qs are down at 0.1, so we're down just a little bit farther than the Qs are. So this kind of helps me gauge where all the players are in the market. Russell at its flat line, and the Dow down about 0.58. So Dow is the biggest loser so far today. All right, looks like we could be rejecting a little bit here from the VWAP. So let's see if we get any. We're getting a MACD rollover here to the downside. But I'm going to give this a little time because we've got like this range here that I'd like to see it break through before I go with any shorts. All right, so Anna's saying between 694.2 and 697.2. Okay, thank you, Anna. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate it. All right, so no trade yet. Waiting for a break of the view up to the upside and a break of this range to the downside. The other thing I'm looking at is the VIX. So remember, the VIX runs inverse to the markets. As the VIX drops, the markets climb. The VIX is the volatility index. It gauges the fear of the market. As fear climbs, the VIX climbs and the market drops. As fear subsides and exuberance takes over and complacency, the VIX drops and the market climbs. All right, so here we're looking at a bit of a rejection. That's nice. We like that. We want to break down through this range, which is also sitting right at our overnight low. So like I said, no trade just yet. What I want to see is a break of the overnight low, a break of this range back to the downside. Everyone just sort of pulling a little bit sideways right now. What's notable is that we did not get a break of the VWAP. That doesn't mean they can't run up and try it again, but at this attempt, they were not able. Audrey, explanation of the VWAP. Absolutely. Thank you for asking. I really appreciate that. So the VWAP is this white line right here, and it has two outer bands as well. So it has this upper white line and this lower white line. Those are just two standard deviations of the center white line. The center white line is basically a moving average, but it is weighted with the volume of the trades. So you can see we have big volume on certain levels, certain trades, certain prices. And so the VWAP adds that into the calculation and gives more weight to areas of trade that have heavier volume. So it's not just a moving average of price, it's giving extra movement to those areas that have heavy volume. It's used by a lot of institutional traders. It is watched closely by a lot of traders. So, and what I notice about the VWAP is that it tends to act, I call it kind of a highway, right? So the VWAP for me is the center divider of a south and a northbound highway. When we are trading over the VIX, we are headed northbound. I said VIX, the VWAP. When we are trading below the VIX, the VWAP. When we're trading below the VWAP, we are southbound and we are bearish. So, okay, we're breaking the overnight low. I may take some puts in here. I'm going to look at, I'm going to look at the 694 puts for today's expiration. I'm not in them yet. I'm just looking at them. I'm watching this price action. Hopefully that, Audrey, was a good explanation. Hopefully that made sense for you. And thank you for asking. All right, I'm going to jump into these puts here. I'm in, punch it. Wow, they took their time filling that order, didn't they? Wow. Talk about slippage here. All right, well, they gave us a little long wick candle and then pulled it right back up. I'm going to watch this for a minute. Little tricky here. Let's see if they're actually going to drop it or they're just going to reverse this on us with this long lower wick here. So they brought it right back up to that overnight low. Let's see if they punch it back up through it and into this range, or if we get a rejection here. All right, looks like maybe a little rejection here. So let's see if they can bring it back down, because that was a bad fill for my trade. All right, looks like we might try to move it back down. Let's see here. There we go. A little bit of a bounce here. So now I'm in this trade at a really bad fill because I got filled down here. So I need it to come all the way back down, which is going to be challenging. But let's see what happens here with this overnight low. This is a little area of interest. So let's see what they do here. That was a nice spike on the VIX there, all the way up to 16. All right, so that was a bit of a liquidity grab, it looks like to me. We're back into range. All right, making a little run back for the VWAP. And the VIX coming down just a little bit here. So that was a big volume bar and a long lower spike. And that was a liquidity grab. And then they turned and pushed it. So now I have to wait and see what happens here at the VWAP. So no go just yet on the VWAP. All right, there's a push. Looks like we might get another rejection here at the VWAP. Okay, coming down a bit. And what I might do on this trade, if I get kind of like Gavin was asking earlier about averaging, I might consider that on this trade if I get the sell signals. Right now, I don't have strong sell signals. But it is, we haven't beat the VWAP yet. So that is still on the bearish side, even though we've been running up for a while. So let's see what happens in this zone here. So it looks like the volume sort of dropped off after that long wick, and it looks like it's descending a bit here. So that's also kind of a clue that we might not continue up here. So let's see what happens. We need VIX to give us a little push upward. Gavilan, will I explain a proper reset? Yeah, great question, Gavilan. I use the word reset. Basically, what it means to me is so for example, you saw this climb happening here, moving averages are moving upward. We get a little sideways here. It's what I'm looking for is the moving averages to actually reset to the opposite direction like they do here. So here we sort of go sideways. So those moving averages it's sort of coming down, but not really. You can see it's just kind of doing a kind of a cup here, saucer. It's not really resetting. It's just sort of going sideways and then upward again. This one is more of a reset. So you can see the moving averages come down. You can see it goes really straight down. That one is kind of saying, okay, if we're going to continue back up, That's a proper reset in my mind, the way I look at it. But great question, Gavilan. Thank you for asking. All right, back to the VWAP again. So we've tried it 1, 2, this is the third time. Let's see what happens here. Still not quite making it through. We're trying again. And there's a little push. All right, pushing upward. All right, we're moving up, getting closer to our flat line here. Yeah, that's a strong push. All right, we can consider calls here. I'm going to load up the 694 calls. I'm not in yet. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take these calls. I'm in, punch it. We're up just slightly. Okay, up a little bit. And got a little response here from our opening range. Yeah, I'm still in the put. Gavilan, great question. All right. Moving up here a little bit. And we're sitting right here at the 200. So should get a bounce off of that. All right, little move here. And volume kind of shrinking a bit here. So just tiny little moves right now. NVIDIA moving up really nicely as one of the leaders, up 1.29. All right, there we go. There's our push. Here we go. Giving us another little push here. Here we are. All right, I'm going to jump out of these calls. I'm out. That was like 4%. It wasn't much. And then as soon as I get a sell signal, I think I'm going to average these puts. I don't have a sell signal right now. So that's what I got to wait for. All right, we're coming up to the opening range line. That's this green line right here. This is the bottom of our 15 minutes opening range. Audrey, what's a sell signal? Great question, Audrey. I want to see the MACD roll down red again. So right now it's green and it's strong. So we see it moving up still. I want to see it roll over and come back down into the red. I also want to see the moving average start coming down here. Done, Gavilan. Very good. And it's still going. We're coming up to the flat line where we closed yesterday. So we're currently just about 3 points off of where we closed yesterday. Still continuing to drop here a bit. Please close. Signals yet. All right. Anna got 5% on the call. Nicely done, Anna. All right. Still sitting here right at this 2-3 points down. So let's see if we continue to climb here. Are they trying to take us green today? That's a really, it looks like it's happened. Yeah, that's definitely a strong V move here, except for this little, that was a little fake out for sure. Question is, can we come back down and will the average be enough? We are still sitting in net gamma negative, but just barely. So it's starting to balance out. The negative gamma is balancing out. We're much less negative than we were. Still have the largest volume sitting at the 693 puts, but we've got a lot of stacked up volume over here on the call side as well. All right, so trade today for me with this put is I'm going to be waiting for a reversal. I will probably average this put, but right now we're climbing. So I need to roll over. I'm looking for the moving average to roll over. And when that happens, I'll probably average this put. Um, until then, if we do get a pullback, downside, if we get a pullback with a reversal like a Nike swoosh, I will trade that to the upside. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, and then we'll probably sign off for the morning. But if it comes down and you don't want to average, so average, here's the risk with averaging. You're getting into a larger position, so use it cautiously. If I average this put, it'll be because I see the actual signs that we're reversing. I'm not just going to average it just to average it. So, but be aware that if you do that, you will put yourself in a larger position. And that's where you have to be cautious. If you're going to go into a larger position, make sure you're not overextending yourself. That's where you want to protect your capital. And if it's, it just doesn't feel, if it feels like that position is too big for you, don't do it, right? That's the risk part, is that now you're putting more money at risk. So could we just continue up for the rest of the day? Yes, we could. So be really careful when you're averaging and make sure that all the signs are there and that it makes sense for your account. Okay. All right, Anna saying, thank you. Have a great day. Have a great day, all of you. Thank you so much for joining. It was a wonderful morning. Best case break even. Yeah, that would be a good case. That's exactly right. Okay, you guys have a great rest of your morning. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Mountain. Bye for now.